Okay, so you've given us quite a bit of material on this whole idea of passive income as a quicker route to early retirement.
Yeah.
So let's for this deep dive really try to unpack how practical these different approaches are,
Mhm.
and how to actually build income streams that don't need you constantly working.
Right.
We've got articles, books, even some forum discussions here. So let's dig in and see what stands out to you.
Well, the first thing that jumped out at me was this whole discussion about how things are changing, the economic landscape.
Yeah.
I mean, how that's forcing us to rethink this whole traditional view of retirement.
Hmm.
The author even uses this phrase, quiet desperation,
Oh, yeah.
almost hinting that the old model of working for decades, might not actually lead to the freedom people are looking for.
Absolutely. And the stats are pretty alarming too. Like that fact that 1 in 3 Americans have less than $5,000 saved for retirement.
Yes, saw that.
It really highlights why so many people are feeling this urgency to explore alternatives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads to this questioning of the whole nest egg theory of retirement, right?
Yeah.
This idea that just saving a huge chunk of money is going to be enough
Yeah. Well, it's debatable, especially with people living longer and costs going up all the time.
it really makes you rethink that standard advice of just putting aside a percentage of each paycheck.
Yeah,
Like maybe we need to be more proactive.
for sure.
And something that really struck me was this whole emphasis on time being so valuable.
Oh, yeah.
One of the chapters mentioned this Facebook poll where like over 90% of people said they valued time more than money,
Right.
which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Although the author makes a good point that this isn't universally true. You
Mhm.
know, for a lot of people, especially those struggling financially, the priority is just making ends meet, you know?
Yeah, of course.
So this whole thing about time being the more valuable resource, well, it kind of depends on where you're at financially, right? It's all relative. But for those who do have some financial stability, the appeal of passive income as a way to free up more time, that's huge.
Oh, absolutely.
And chapter 4 really defines passive income, right?
Yeah,
It's money that keeps coming in even after you've put in the initial work to set it up.
exactly. The less work, the better.
Yeah, that's the dream. And one of the first categories the book explores is royalty income.
Okay, so Royalty Income Chapter 5 explains it as earning money from using your creations.
Right.
Like authors getting paid when their books sell or musicians when their songs are streamed.
Exactly. You create something once and then potentially earn from it over and over again.
I like it. And what's cool is that some of these avenues for royalty income have become way more accessible nowadays.
Mm.
Chapter 6 specifically talks about books and ebooks as a good starting point.
Mm.
Self-publishing has gotten so much easier.
And the author even offers a bonus gift for anyone who's interested in exploring this further. A whole package of resources, like a worksheet to help you choose a passive income stream, tips on common mistakes, and even a time tracker.
Wow.
Yeah. You can find it at www.moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus.
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
And to show just how powerful book royalties can be, the author shares Hal Elrod's story. The
Yeah.
guy who wrote The Miracle Morning.
Oh, yeah, chapter 9, right?
That's the one. His story is incredible. He went through so much, like a terrible car accident,
Mm.
major debt, even battling cancer.
Mm.
But he managed to write and self-publish this hugely successful book, The Miracle Morning.
And it's not just successful, it's made a real impact. It's been translated into 37 languages, has thousands of 5-star reviews, and has helped millions of people.
Yeah. The author's research puts the estimated passive royalty income from the book in the U.S. alone at around $720,000 a year.
That's amazing. So what's the secret to his success?
Well, it seems to be in teaching people actionable strategies for personal growth through his, what he calls, savers method and a 30-day challenge. So it's not just information. It's about real change.
That makes sense. And I think it's important to be realistic. Even with a success story like that, building that level of passive income takes a lot of work.
Definitely.
Hal Elrod himself spent about 18 months promoting his book before seeing substantial sales. So it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Patience is key.
Right, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But Hal Elrod estimates that his book, Royalty Income, is now about 95% passive. So the payoff can be huge.
Totally. And building on this idea of creating and selling content, Chapter 10 focuses on online courses as another really promising source of royalty income.
Yeah.
The authors suggest that online courses often have even higher earning potential than books because they offer a more in-depth and interactive learning experience, video, audio downloads, all that.
That makes sense. People are willing to pay more for a more comprehensive learning experience. And the chapter mentions platforms like Teachable and Thinkific for creating and selling your courses.
Well, those are good ones. Then in Chapter 11, there's a brief discussion on some other types of royalty income that might be a little less accessible for most people, like software and apps franchising, and even royalties from mineral rights.
Like for software and apps, the examples of Microsoft Office and the App Store really show the potential.
Hmm.
You create a valuable piece of software or a useful app, and you can earn royalties every time someone buys it or uses it.
It's a great model if you can pull it off.
Right. And the author's mother even had this fun idea for an app for drone-delivered gasoline.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thinking outside the box. Franchising and mineral rights are mentioned too, but the author acknowledges that those usually need more specialized knowledge or a bigger initial investment.
Definitely. So let's say you've got an idea for something that could bring in royalty income. What are the next steps?
Well, Section 3 dives into marketing, and it all starts with Chapter 12. The author stresses how important it is to just let people know what you're doing. Friends, family, social media connections.
Get the word out there.
Exactly. It's about building awareness. And the chapter also highlights the importance of building a social media presence and posting consistently so people don't forget about you. And being active in relevant Facebook groups to research your target audience and connect with potential customers.
Well, good strategies.
And while paid advertising is definitely an option, the author actually found success with word-of-mouth marketing for their first book. They also recommend looking into local marketing opportunities and getting creative.
Sounds like good advice. Chapter 13 then gets into pre-launch and beta testing as really effective strategies, not just to refine your product, but also to build excitement before you launch it officially.
The first crucial step in the pre-launch phase is building an email list, and the author suggests using platforms like MailChimp, Wix, and Squarespace for this.
Yeah, those are popular choices.
Then you create some teaser content, like compelling visuals or short videos, to give people a taste of what you're creating and show them the benefits.
I like that. Build the hype.
And beta testing is key. By offering your product at a reduced price or even for free to a small group of early users, you get valuable feedback, identify areas to improve, and even get testimonials you can use in your marketing.
Smart. All right, so we've talked about royalty income. Now let's switch gears to another major category of passive income, portfolio income, which is covered in Chapter 14.
Okay.
It's all about making your investments work for you.
Right.
The basics here include interest you earn on savings accounts, dividends from stocks and ETFs, and interest from bonds, including bond ETFs.
So like those exchange-traded funds that hold a bunch of stocks or bonds and trade like a single stock.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
worth noting how different things are now compared to the 80s when interest rates were much higher.
Oh, yeah, good point.
And there's also this important warning about inflation eating away at the real value of fixed bond payments over time.
Yeah, that's a real concern.
For sure. The chapter then moves on to more complex portfolio income strategies like peer-to-peer lending through platforms like Lending Club and Prosper and Master Limited Partnerships or MLPs.
Okay.
Now, with these more advanced options, it's crucial to be aware of the higher risks involved.
Right.
The author strongly advises being cautious, particularly with MLPs, and talking to a financial advisor before jumping in.
Do your research.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the main downside to portfolio income, as Chapter 14 highlights, is the risk of losing your initial investment, especially when markets get volatile.
Like during recessions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the one back in 2008, it's a stark reminder of the risks.
While the stock market has generally provided returns over the long term, you got to be in it for the long haul and accept that market ups and downs are just part of the game.
That's a good mindset to have.
Okay, let's shift to something totally different. Coin-operated passive income, which is covered in Chapter 15.
Coin-operated.
Yeah, this includes things like vending machines, ATMs, car washes, laundromats, even arcade games.
Interesting. So how does that work?
Well, the author introduces this framework called the factors of scrimp to help analyze these types of businesses.
Scrimp?
Yeah, it stands for scalability, controllability, and regulation, investment marketability, and passivity.
Okay, I see.
So it's basically a way to assess how easily you can grow the business, how much control you have, and what rules apply, the initial cost, whether there's demand for it, and how much ongoing work is needed.
So would you say that based on this framework, certain types of coin-operated businesses are more passive than others?
Well, the author suggests that single machines, like a snack vending machine in a good spot, might be more truly passive than, say, running a whole laundromat.
That makes sense.
The author actually breaks down the potential return on investment for a vending machine. Let's say you buy a machine for $3,500 and sell 50 items a week at $2.50 each.
Oh.
With costs of $1.50 per item and $15 in weekly expenses, the projected ROI could be 52% annually.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
But it's important to remember this is a simplified model. Real-world results can vary. And the author really stresses the need to have a solid business plan and do a thorough financial analysis before investing in any vending machines.
Makes sense. So like researching good wholesalers for your supplies and understanding the weekly maintenance involved.
Exactly. You also have to factor in things like potential vandalism, the time you spend restocking the machines, and even the risk of the location losing foot traffic.
Right, those hidden costs can really add up.
The chapter also looks at the ATM vendor business model.
Oh, interesting.
So the way it works is the fee for each withdrawal is split between the ATM owner, the owner of the location where it's placed, and the ATM processor.
Okay.
The author gives an example showing a potential profit of a couple of dollars per transaction. But you have to consider the upfront cash needed to keep the ATM stocked with money.
How much are we talking about?
The author estimates it could be around $2,000 per week, though that's usually replenished as people use the ATM. And the cost of buying an ATM itself can range from around $1,000 to $10,000.
Got it. So a decent chunk of change to get started.
Then there's the laundromat business, which can be a source of passive income once you get it going.
But it sounds like a pretty big investment.
Yeah, the author points out the significant upfront costs, both in terms of time and money. Startup costs could be anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 plus ongoing operating expenses.
Oh, that's a lot.
But there are multiple income streams for a laundromat, like washing and drying fees, vending machines, maybe even laundry services.
Yeah.
And well-managed laundromats can have pretty good profit margins.
So it could be worth it.
It all comes down to thorough market research, a solid business plan, and the owner's ability to run things efficiently.
Definitely. You can't just jump in blindly.
Chapter 18 gives a quick overview of dropshipping. Have you heard of that?
I've heard the term, but I'm not sure exactly what it is.
So dropshipping is a way to sell products online without actually holding any inventory yourself.
Oh, interesting.
When a customer places an order with you, you buy the item from a third-party supplier who ships it directly to the customer.
So you're kind of like a middleman.
Exactly. The author mentions Shopify as a good platform for setting up a dropshipping business.
Okay. And once you have your online store set up and your marketing in place, it seems like it could become pretty passive.
Right. Your main focus would be on customer service and driving traffic to your store.
Got it.
Finally, we get to rental income with a focus on real estate in Chapter 19. The author emphasizes that rental income isn't just about traditional houses or apartments. You can rent out storage space through platforms like Neighbor.com.
Okay.
There's a bonus link for that at www.moneyhoneyrachel.com/bonus. You can also operate storage facilities, parking garages, or even get paid to put ads on your car.
Interesting. I've seen those cars driving around with ads.
Exactly. The chapter touches on commercial real estate, but the main focus is on residential real estate investing as a more accessible starting point for passive income.
Makes sense.
One strategy that's detailed is house hacking by buying a duplex or triplex.
House hacking. What's that?
So you live in one of the units and rent out the other one or two, which can potentially cover your mortgage and living expenses and even generate some extra income.
Oh, that's clever.
The author gives an example where you could save $800 a month by living in one unit of a triplex and renting out the other two.
Wow.
After a couple of years of house hacking, the author outlines two potential paths. You can either buy another rental property to grow your portfolio, or reinvest your savings and rental income into upgrading your existing property to increase its value and potentially get higher rents.
Okay, so like fix it up, make it nicer.
Exactly. There's an example of a triplex that was bought for $200,000, and after $19,000 in upgrades, its value went up to $250,000.
So a decent return on that investment.
The chapter also walks through the steps of finding and analyzing potential rental properties and really stresses building a good team from the start.
Like who should be on that team?
A reliable realtor, a trusted lender, and a knowledgeable insurance agent.
Makes sense.
When it comes to finding properties, the author talks about the traditional MLS, the multiple listing service,
Right.
but also suggests looking into short sales and pre-foreclosures, attending real estate auctions, checking out probate sales, contacting for sale by owner listings, and even looking into properties with expired listings.
So a lot of options.
Yeah, and before you even go see a property, the author emphasizes running the numbers.
What does that mean exactly?
It means carefully analyzing the potential rental income and all the expenses to see if it's a good investment.
Okay, got to make sure it makes financial sense.
Exactly. The chapter also covers things to consider when making an offer and the steps after your offer is accepted, like inspections, negotiating repairs, getting the loan, the appraisal, and the closing process.
It's like a lot of paperwork.
It can be. But finally, Chapter 20 tackles this big question of how real estate investing actually becomes passive income.
Right. Because at first it seems pretty hands-on.
Yeah, the author admits that the initial stages are definitely active, but the key to making rental property management passive is hiring a property manager.
Okay, so someone to handle the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly.
Mm.
While the author recommends starting by managing your own properties to learn the ropes, the long-term goal for true passive income is to delegate those tasks to a professional.
That makes sense.
The author actually shares their experience managing a duplex. They only spent about an hour a month on it, and it generated $800 in net cash flow.
Not bad.
But hiring a property manager does come at a cost. It can be anywhere from 5 to 15% of the monthly rent.
Something to keep in mind when calculating potential profits.
Definitely. The author also mentions hiring an individual property manager as an option instead of using a big property management company.
So wrapping things up, after going through all these sources, it's clear there are a ton of different paths you can take if you want to generate passive income and maybe retire early.
It's exciting and a bit overwhelming.
The takeaway is that while passive income is a great way to achieve financial independence and maybe retire earlier, it's not some magic shortcut.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort up front to research, plan, and execute, and you need to be making strategic decisions along the way.
And as we've seen, the options are pretty diverse. You can use your creative skills for royalty income, make smart investments for portfolio income, or even go for more tangible assets like real estate or those coin-operated businesses.
What it comes down to is knowing how much you value your time, what skills and interests you have, and how comfortable you are with different types of risks.
So making smart choices about how you use your time and money, that's crucial.
Couldn't agree more.
So here's something to think about. After hearing about all these different passive income streams, which one or two really stand out to you? You know, the ones that seem to fit your skills, your passions, and your risk tolerance? And maybe even more important, what's one small step you can take today, right now, to explore that path a little further?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's all about taking action.